My overall experience with Chaos Galaxy has been very positive, to say the least. Um, it's definitely been an uphill battle throughout most of it. It's been because I've wanted to play competitive the whole time, and I was playing casual decks and competitive for so long that though I was having a lot of fun because I was playing my casual deck, I was still losing a lot, which wasn't great to feel. But um, in general, I felt like I was having a good time, and I've since uh, played better, and I would say I'm playing better decks. And in general, I would think that my experience is better, and I am playing better. I think it's a very nice curve to go from a casual to a competitive player, and to get from a competitive to a top player. So I think it's got a lot of room to grow. It's got a lot of fun aspects to it, and I have a very fun time with it.
So I it just kind of came up into my recommended one time, and I watched it because I used to make my own card games as a kid. So I was like, okay, I wonder if there's videos about this, and I found it. And then a few years after I found it, I ended up finding the Discord server, and I joined that, and I started playing more recently. And now I play sometimes in competitive, but I'm mostly casual.
Well, I've been playing for about 2 years, I'd say. For in the beginning, obviously I was like a noob, but then got a bit better. But the format back then was a bit different. So I won a few tournaments. Some players left. So for like a week, I was considered as the best. But then, you know, I think it was like Galaxy Madness or something. I don't remember what the tournament is called, but that happened, and then a lot of players joined, and I just kind of stopped playing the game for a while, about a few months, and then now I came back for Step 5. Yeah.
Okay, so I started playing pretty early on. I think for almost 2 years now. Um, I joined like a couple months before Galaxy Madness 1, and since then I've been playing a lot of the game. I've been grinding fight clubs a little more in the past. I won a bunch of tournaments as well. Galaxy Madness, the first one. Yeah, I don't know. You can check the logs to see which tournaments I won. But yeah, I won like a handful, maybe 6 tournaments or something, and gotten top finishes in a couple others.
I really enjoy playing CG. The most fun I get from it is playing competitive. I have 150 hours on Untap and have played 300 games. I'm still kinda new to the scene and played actively after the release of the Planetary Collections. I've had a pretty positive experience with CG. However, it has been a roller coaster as this is like my first real internet experience, so I had to learn the ropes a little. Some of the highs for me would be playing social CG and VC, and then some of the lows would be watching my good friends such as Brylizer and Fish leave. Other than that, though, CG has been a pretty positive impact for me.
My favorite planet, it's got to be Pelisium. I've played Pelisium for so long. I've loved Pelisium for so long. That was my planet, and up until the absolute nerf that happened to it, um, I played it every single tournament, every single match was Pelisium for me, and I just love the planet. The best cards in Pelisium now are easily um, Great Serpent of the Falls, Rowdy of Pally Falls, Blur of Pally Falls. Um, a bit of a controversial take, but I would say cards like Mystical Beast the Deep are also very essential cards to the deck. Some people agree, some people disagree, but that's my take. Um, I think cards like a Leviathan Crown are huge for the deck, and as much as I would love to be able to play it competitively, I'm just upset that it lacks those tools right now. But in general, East that's got to be my favorite planet. Yeah, I don't think the only competition really is Roka, but um, I don't think it matches what Palladium has done for me throughout my time in the game.
I I don't exactly have a favorite planet when it comes to theme wise, but I think Barrow is my favorite planet gameplay wise. It's just fun to use. Has some of my favorite cards, and I just like playing it. It's easy. It's fun.
Probably Pelisium. Well, I don't play Pelisium anymore, but back then I played a lot of Polysium because I think it's the planet that has a lot of potential in it. Because back then, when the Serpent supports aren't here yet, um, Polysium is already really fun in my opinion. Although no one played it, I really liked how there's synergies between a lot of cards. I also really like deep sea creatures, so I think Polysium is my favorite.
Yeah, so my favorite planet has to be Gaios because I don't know, I like the idea of searching your deck. It has that consistency element with cards like Thorngabork and Glub Beast of the Night Jungle. There's a really cool combo with those cards and like Aplu Slash is a new tree squaws, sapling squaws is what it's called. So yeah, I really like Gaios as a planet. I like nature, so it kind of fits. I've always liked the like grass type of like Pokemon or other games. And currently in this format, I'm really enjoying Sindel and playing cards like Soul Shroom and Forces of Justice because I think you have a lot of versatility, and it's also fun to mill your deck with cards like Diabolos.
I started as a Syndian player and hold on to this. Deck wise, is Barrow still my favorite? Cards like Queen, Quake, and Atatrox are super cool and strong. Syndian is sadly way weaker, but got good support this set. Some good cards are Yagelion, Spear, Orbov, and Senji. Favorite planet is probably Gaias, not only from a gameplay standpoint, but also from a vibe standpoint. I always liked nature themes in games ever since I was a child with Skylanders or Pokemon, so I guess it's a bit nostalgic for me. I also like the concept of setting up combos and killing your cards to search combos. My favorite cards would be Knopf, as it's a really well balanced and encourages you to use the planet gas. Its stats are nice and it can kill other small things and has low health, so it isn't being degenerate and walling anything. I also really like Rootaboot and its concept of killing your own cards for the benefits it. I also really like Rootaboot as a concept of killing your own cards for benefits. It's a concept that intrigues me, as usually killing your own resources is a bad thing to do, so to get a benefit off of it is a unique touch.
My favorite support cards in the game have to be Cosmic Treasure's a nice one. Mostly because of just how powerful it is and how very insane that is as a support. But if we're looking more at like planet like support, then it's got to be Leviathan Crown is a huge one. That card is very good in Polysium decks, and it's just something I love to play. Um, so we're talking about favorite support. I don't have to worry about them being good, and I don't have to worry about only picking good things. But um, I liked I liked cards like Jetpack, really nice Whirlpool Jetpack. Um, cards like uh, cards like Mystical Beast of the Deep, a lot of Polysium stuff. But also when we get past that, I like if we look at set five, Whirlwind Wings is just a really nice card. I like it. It's probably not too competitively viable, but it's a card I like to play. I think it's a really nice one, and it has its niche uses in general. But yeah, I would say that those are my favorite support cards in the game.
Um, well, from Barrow specifically, some of my favorites are Saber Flutes. I just really like the art. I really like the bugs in Barrow, and Inox. I really like Inox. Very cool. Outside of Barrow, I really like For Sale Sign. I think that's a really cool card conceptually. Um, I think it's really interesting, and yeah, I think it's really fun to see when it comes into play. I like Beast of the Black Hole. I think that's very well designed as well. I don't like Point Turret, of course, but Point 2 is the best card in the game, for example. That would be great. I do like Phantom Matter. I think that's also very creative. I'm only mentioning mostly the staples because those are the cards that do see the most play, because I don't know too much about the rest. Angry Totem is also a really cool card from set 5 that I really like. I think it's pretty well designed, and the draw one is a nice drawback, making it not too annoying to face. That's one of my favorite cards in set 5 actually, I think.
I am a big fan of Cosmic just because I like to draw cards. Yeah. I also like spoons because I like to reveal cards on top of my deck and like add them. I think it's like a really cool mechanic in card games. So like basically all the draw cards are my favorite. I don't really like any, counter cards or yeah, those kinds of things.
Okay, well, of course, number one card, best of the best, Relics mine. Even if I don't play it in every deck, it's just my favorite card in this idea. It's like consistency. It doesn't really do anything, but I don't know. I'm just a huge fan of Relics mine. Um, yeah. What other support cards do I like? Hmm. I don't know. It's the rainbow cards again. I think Charge Blaster is a pretty cool card generally for like removal and stuff. Um, yeah, I don't know those cards.
Zometal has to be the coolest new support card. Also, cards like Soulshroom, FOJ, Zamtree, Army of Justice, Mouth, and Firewall are really cool and good in supporting their decks, just to name a few of them. Potentially one of my favorite cards in the game, in also Gaius, is the magical Zamelian Tree. I just love how it helps out with consistency a tiny bit and helps out with star economy a tiny bit while remaining specific to Gaius, unlike most cards such as Spoons or Phantom Matter. It also has niche combos like Taupe. It also has niche combos with Taupe Swinger and Knopf. Not only is it interesting for the players playing the card, but it reveals information to the opponent, which adds another layer of skill.
So Chaos Galaxy has really warped my view on card games. When I started playing Chaos Galaxy, I was someone who loved to play Magic the Gathering, and Pokemon, and I loved those games, um, but I was never really good at them. I played a bit of Magic, and I was fine at it. I could play well, I could understand, but it's also such an expensive game. It's hard to build any deck in it, and it's hard to be competitive. Um, not because of skill, but because of mostly price. Um, since coming to Chaos Galaxy, I've never bought cards, and I've been able to play at a competitive level my whole time here, and that's been a huge bonus. The fact that I'm able to have the fun of Chaos Galaxy without having to break the bank. As you've seen with me starting up my YouTube, I am uh, breaking the bank a little bit, but I haven't had to throughout my entire encounter up to this point. And honestly, the only reason I'm doing it is because I've wanted to own the physical cards because of how much I like the game. So it wasn't a matter of needing to get them to be able to play good in that sense. And then how it's really changed my view on life is coming into Chaos Galaxy. I had known people online and sorts, but I've never really friended people online. That these are just, they're mostly just people. They're strangers. They're people I've never been able to know. And though I will say a lot of the Chaos Galaxy community is still very anonymous to me, there's still a connection. Like even someone like you, Snoopers, for example. I don't know you. Like I don't know your name. I don't know where you live. I don't even know. I don't think I know what state you're in, to be honest. All I know is the time zone you're in because of all the scheduling. So, but I feel like I know you to a degree. We've talked a bit and had a few personal chats, and it's just a matter of like through Chaos Galaxy, I've learned that internet friends can be real friends, and so it has changed how I view life because I found a very wholesome and accepting community who is willing to accept my absolutely terrible Diablo strats and horrible theory at times, or just absolutely hot takes, and won't ban me. So overall, I think I've had a really great time. I think it's been a really eye-opening experience throughout life, as well as just being really good on how I view trading card games and how I expect them to go in the future.
It did kind of inspire me to start my own card game. Like I had started card games in the past, but it did inspire me to actually like finish one and not just kind of start it and make 5 cards and then start over. Um, but it also changed my perspective on card games because it kind of introduced me to a lot of the core things that happens when you make a TCG because I had never actually played a TCG when I started making card games. So it introduced me to the concept of archetypes, introduced me to a lot of things, and also just the way you can theme and make cool creatures. Like it just opened my opened me up to more possibilities than just making a bunch of same thing. And then another thing it did is more recently, it's taught me more about like how games would look in a more developed meta, because this game does have a much more active competitive scene than a lot of the other games I've played. So there's a pan list, there's CG theory, which is um, way more developed than any other card game that I've played from HCCGs. And I think that's like more of like an end goal that I would also like to get to.
I think Chaos Galaxy is a really strategic game compared to some other games I played. Well, obviously for some other games, I'm not that high skilled and I'm not like top players yet. So for Chaos Galaxy, as I have understanding of it, I can really try to predict my opponent's moves and try to make counterplays. So in some matches, when the situation is right, I can be like, predicting a few turns ahead and try to outplay my opponent. And I feel like that's a really cool aspect of Chaos Galaxy, especially due to how many counter and activators there are in the game. So yeah, I'd say Chaos Galaxy is one of the most strategic card games I've played. In terms of life, though, I mean, there aren't really that many impacts, I guess. It definitely made me more interested in homemade trading card games as I played Chaos Galaxy, and I was finding if there are any other homemade trading card games out there.
I guess Chaos Galaxy is like it's all about this idea of a small community. I think it's really cool because compared to other games, it's so much smaller. The art maybe not as good. It might not be as professional, but yet this community forms around it. And I think that's part of the appeal, kind of, that there's this smallness. So I don't know if you want to get philosophical. It kind of shows that you could really like build a community that's not too big over something small. Like there's this really cool element in that. And even if just a handful of people find something cool, that's all you need to really have a good time.
I have played Hearthstone and Yu-Gi-Oh before CG, but only casually. CG has taught me competitive. I am now much better understanding the view of metas, balancing, and fun of card games. Honestly, CG has opened my eyes to many concepts that I hadn't previously thought about due to various political and philosophical discussions we've had. CG has also encouraged me to strive to play optimally, which has transferred to real life. Over the years, I found myself striving to be more efficient in the way I go about things, and I find myself using logic more often and not allowing my emotions to get the better of me.
So, Chaos Galaxy's star system specifically is a very unique strategy. It's a very unique idea. You look at other card games and they have life point strategies in Yu-Gi-Oh. Well, yes, in reverse for CG versus Yu-Gi-Oh, where you're gaining points to win versus losing life points, making your opponent lose life points. But you could do essentially the same thing. If you started a game of Chaos Galaxy both at 20 points and said, hey, every time you attack them, they'll lose points at the same rate that you would gain, like, a 250 would make them lose 3, then essentially the system would be the same as every other life-based system, like Magic the Gathering. It would be the same as Yu-Gi-Oh as well. Um, but the star system is unique in the sense that not many other games have a system of resource management where it's not strictly ramping. You look at Magic the Gathering and you play out like 3 lands, but next turn you still have 3 lands and you could make that 4. In Chaos Galaxy, the star system is just it's unique in the sense that if you spend your 10 stars, you're only going to 4 next turn. You're not getting back up to 10 plus 4. You're going back to start and you're having to work through it again. So, being able to manage your stars is extremely important and a very complicated strategy that if you know how to do better than your opponent, could be the reason you win a game. The fact that you just know how to manage your resources better, because the resources are much farther and few in between, as well as the fact that Chaos Galaxy just doesn't have a lot of good ramp cards. There are not many cards that gain you gain you stars that are worth playing, if that makes sense. So I would say that the star system alone is a very unique aspect of Chaos Galaxy, and one that I find really interesting, and one that I think is essential to master if you want to be able to play at a top tier, the top level. It'd be mostly into like the card types. I will say throughout Chaos Galaxy, there are a lot of cards that are either just power crept or a lot of cards that just aren't worth playing. There's not really an incentive to play vanillas. Like in Magic the Gathering, your vanillas are generally larger. You know, they have stats that actually matter to a degree, like that are worth running more. You know, you look at Chaos Galaxy vanillas, Aqua Knight, for example, 100 power is not killing much of anything. And 270 health isn't really worth being a wall. You got cards like Ground Knight, 180, 250, I think, something like that. And 250 is walling out a decent amount, and 180 is killing a decent amount. But like, then if you want to kill past 180, you'd have to use the barrel effect to swap the stats, and then 180 is dying pretty easily. So it's like vanillas. There's no incentive to use vanilla. There's no incentive for it. And if anything, there are cards that punish you for playing vanillas. Cards like what is it? Supernova, I think, punishes you for playing a vanilla. You have cards like combiners, for example, which are just they're so they're so cringeworthy, and I don't really know a better way to put it, but like it's a two card combo for stats that just don't really matter, and they have to either have an effect that's insane or really good stats. You know, something like Army of Justice that was just released, 440, 400 stats, because and an insane effect of just searching out a Barrow, Gaius, or Syndian creature and adding it to your hand. Well, I think it was like three or lower stars, but still just going -1. No, actually, I think you're going neutral because the two combiners on the field count as one card. So you go neutral, I think. You have to have a really good effect or really good stats or both to be worth it as a combiner. It's just like I feel like there's some aspects of the game that are just underutilized and aren't worth using. Like and especially permanent resource for another one. You know, there's really no incentive to run permanent resources. There's no permanent resources that are really worth running. You know, it's just there's so many features in the game that are just useless at times, it seems. But other than that, um, I think there's a lot of uniqueness to the game. There are their pros, there are their cons, um, but I think there are a lot more pros than cons.
Well, I'd say the zone system has its pros and its cons. It's what kind of defines Chaos Galaxy mostly is the zone system. I really like it as a concept. Like it's very, very interesting because you have to, as a concept, conceptually, you have to constantly manage your zones and also manage paying for creatures. So you're early game, you're having to make sure you're paying for stuff correctly and not overpaying things. Um, though I do feel like in gameplay, sometimes it kind of becomes irrelevant after a certain amount of time. It's just like you buy your zones quite early, and then you don't really have to worry about them unless you want to swing for higher and you have a high amount of stars. So that's one thing I feel like could have been maybe executed in a better way somehow. I don't know how, but I feel like it probably could have. Space theme is a good theme because I think it's really general because you can do a lot with it, and I think it's really cool how you can get away with making such a variety of different things because you have so many different themes to choose from, and then you also have no planet for anything that doesn't get uh, chosen from that. And the art, of course, is very nice. I really like that.
I mean, it is a really good game in my opinion for many reasons. It's especially good for like a homie trading card game. I've played, a few of them, and I feel like Chaos Galaxy is definitely the one that attracts me the most. Especially the artwork. It's kind of simplistic, but I think it is really powerful and it's really creative. I also really like how the planets and the zones work. Um, it is a really cool concept instead of just having normal Magic the Gathering systems like most homie trading card games out there. I think I like how the planets work since well not every single card game has like a center card that you play around. And the planet abilities are really interesting in my opinion, especially something like Gaios or Polysium, which are, very uh, relevant in your game plan. I think these plan abilities really help make every deck unique and not just very generic. Although one of my complaints for the current meta is decks are running the same cards over and over again. These planet cards are very like specific, so it kind of helps to fix this problem a bit. Yeah, I mentioned about some like outplaying potentials in every game. For example, like counters, but I do think Chaos Galaxy has too many counters that you play a card and there are like 12 different ways for your opponent to counter it. I like the game to be a bit more fluid, like you can actually play your combos and stuff. But currently, I feel like there are a bit too many of these combos that can be stopped. So yeah,
Right. So I think the coolest things are this idea of star management. I think most games don't have this, as most resources, like in a game like Magic, your resources go away at the end of your turn, so you have to use them all. And Chaos Galaxy has this really interesting mechanic about you keep the stars you don't use. So it's really a challenge to manage them and make sure you're valuing resources correctly between your board state, your hand, and your stars. I think those are a lot of cool mechanics. I also like that with a smaller community, you really do have this opportunity to discover new combos and really innovate, whereas you wouldn't in bigger games. And then the thing I like least about Chaos Galaxy is that the rules are unclear. So a lot of the cards are worded very awkwardly, and there's some inconsistency in the way they are worded, and that makes ruling really hard. Because sometimes you're playing in a tournament and you get to a turn, and you don't know how a card interaction works, and then you have to call the TO, and they don't really know how it works, and so that's really frustrating figuring out how the cards work. And sometimes even Zach contradicts himself, so we have to say no, Zach is wrong. This is how the card actually works. But yeah, other than that, I mean, pretty good game.
Again, I love the competitive aspect of the game, the complex intricacies and fun encounters and matchups. I like how slow the game is and how high skill it is. You get to play most of your cards, and there are no stun, negate, or OTK decks. You can still play most deck types like tempo, aggro, mid-range, and control with varied results. I like how you have to manage your resources, know when to use what, and how you have to adapt your playstyle to the matchup. The community most of the time is nice and does cool content. The tournaments are highlight for sure. Things that I don't like are sometimes too many staples, which results in too little deck space to make interesting and fun strategic decisions. To use certain cards on untap is really annoying, like Roka and the Scardians. And some cards are too RNG or coin flip. My favorite aspect of CG is probably the zone mechanic. I'm surprised it took this long to get a zone card like Somato, and I'd 100% encourage making new types of cards like resources and attachments that are zone cards. They could even have a subclass of permanent resources, much like moons are to attachments. I think this would be a really interesting way to build decks and to play games. Another thing that I'm disappointed not to see with zones is the lack of a deck that not only generates zones, but effectively utilizes those zones in a fun and enjoyable way that doesn't involve spamming one creature 500 times. I also like to see more zone interaction cards such as zone removal, zone gain, zone stealing, zone clogging, etc. Although it's my favorite aspect about CG, it's also the most disappointing part due to its potential. My least favorite aspect would probably be the way that Zach designs cards. He does two things that really annoy me. Makes activators not only negates things, and he does two things that really annoy me. Makes activators only negate things, and designs generic cards. One of the main appeals of playing TCGs is being able to build your own deck using your own unique combination of cards to win the game. Another appeal to playing TCGs is winning. Players love winning. To win, you need to play 15 or so boring old staples that restrict your deck building creativity by about 50%, or you could choose not to win and go build your deck with staples and go build your deck without the staples and lose every single game. With the set 3 ban list, I thought this problem would improve, but then he releases Turret and Spoons. With the set 4 ban list, I thought the problem was improving, and then he released Droplet Squads and Abomination 2. At this point, staples have become a fundamental part of CG, and it doesn't seem like they'll be going away anytime soon, which is extremely disappointing.
The main reason, and probably the largest reason, because I enjoy the game. I love the game. The only format I've ever not liked the game was the format where I had the most fun in the game, to be honest. And that was because that's because people were playing Sindel Control, and all I did was play out one big guy who got sucked by Gehenna and was just it was a rough time. And then they drop a KO, and it was just a matter of bad deck building and not really understanding the game. But even at that time, I was still enjoying it, and I play it because well, one, I enjoyed a lot, but also, I have obligations with the game. I have to work on the website, which it's not really a have to. I could probably get someone else to do it, but it's something that I'd like to do as well. Um, Chaos Galaxy brings a lot of fun to me. It's a nice community, even though there are some people I wish were a bit nicer in the community. It is a nice community overall, and I wouldn't pick another community over it in almost every case. It's one that has stuck with me for a while and one that I hope to have with me for a very long time. It's just, I guess there's really no way to quantify it. I don't know what's so special about this game. I've played so many other card games, and this is one of the only ones that's really, really stuck. And I guess, yeah, it's really just a fun game, and it's a game that has an active community, a game that has a very supportive community, and a game that's really it's looking to expand and looking to get better versus games that are nearly complete. So I would say it's a matter of being able to continue and build onto the game and have fun with it in the meantime.
Okay, so there's a few reasons. For one, I do think because CG is for one the core of the HTCG community, which I am prominently a part of. But also another reason is because it is what kind of inspired me to start my card games. So I feel like it is something that is worth spending my time just as I'm just interested in seeing where the card game goes, as it's also was my main inspiration for my own card game. It was another reason why I play the game is because I do want to see, like, again, with the developed meta, I do want to see how that works and everything. Like, it teaches me more about like how card game theory works and advantage, disadvantage, what's a how does um, all that work. And it's also really fun to sometimes to just discuss in the CG discussion, even though sometimes it might look like an argument. It's usually just discussion. That's always it's always nice to do that. I don't know. It's just like keeps me engaged because I do like to discuss theory with people. And of course the last reason would be that it's actually just a fun game.
I am quite bored, and so a lot of times I want to find things to do, obviously. And apart from video games, trading card games are one of my favorites. But at the same time, some of the bigger trading card games out there don't have this smaller and more dedicated community for me to find. So joining Chaos Galaxy's community makes me feel like I'm part of like a family, and makes me feel more dedicated to the game in general. So I'd say playing Chaos Galaxy is kind of like a I mean, I guess you can say it really did affect my life because I'm kind of in the community now, and I'm heavily involved in it, which is really cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's partly because of the community, and then also there's some other benefits. For example, when you play on Untap, you get all the cards for free, so it's not as big of a time commitment in some ways as other games where you have to really grind it out, and then the cards rotate, and then you have to grind it out again. So there's this constant cycle that's a little bit too stressful in other games. And then you have to really look at each individual game, and there's a reason why I don't like it for some reason. Like Magic.
I joined the Discord after I discovered Zach's channel and saw videos of old tournaments. I then joined for Galaxy Madness. After getting my ass kicked, I left for a couple of months. Didn't leave Discord, just wasn't active anymore. After seeing a stream of a new tournament, I got back into the game, and here I still am. CG is just fun to play for me. Honestly, CG is appealing because it feels like I'm truly part of something and get to influence on something. Unlike more popular TCGs, unlike more popular TCGs such as Pokemon, I'm not just another random playing another irrelevant match with another random. Instead, my games actually mean something. And thanks to the Discord after that, I can discuss the game with the community. The community feels so much more genuine and down to earth than other TCG communities I've been a part of. I've created some really strong friendships with people and I've often found myself in non CG related discussions with people, which makes it feel so much more authentic.
All I would really say elsewise is that competitive's not everything. I know I talk a lot about competitive, but that's really when I'm discussing player versus player sorts, which is just competitive. I think a lot of people can join Chaos Galaxy and just be casual and have no worries, be able to play and have fun. Because I think there's so much pressure on people to play competitively, play in the tournaments, play in this, play in that. But you can play in the tournaments and not play a great deck. You can play in the tournaments and not have to worry about being the best there. You can play to just have fun. Um, and I think that's very often overlooked, especially when newer players are learning the game and trying to have fun with it.
CG has three big problems. Zach is known for being one of the biggest HTZGs, and most people watch and follow him because they are interested in making an HTCD and not playing CG. 2. Because of that, there are only very few players. Since some of these are very loyal and big fans, the skill difference can be rather big. This creates many problems, some of which are newer players will more likely leave, tournaments are rather small and always kept with the same few, the game doesn't grow, and games can be hard to find. Number 3. CG has a big consistency problem with card effects. Even if we make them consistent, they are no longer how they were intended. Also, Untap is good, but not perfect. The game would need a digital remake, but that would be hard to do, especially since he sells them via the Game Crafter. Do better. Secret 27.